In the Vedas, the word ego is represented as aham. Mind is just a processor which receives all the sensation we get from outside through the sense organs, including the brain. Ego, now it's an instrument just like mind and then the intellect. Aham is not I am God. It's not in that loose term.
Yeah.
So there is some aham inside, or the Supreme Being himself is aham inside. Thus, Devata identifying aham is nothing but Shiva. He is the ahankara tattva abhimani devata. When you say that is Shiva, Sham and Va, that is peace and knowledge. That is Shiva. Aham will tell me that where to identify myself with. Where the mind goes to sleep, aham also go to sleep. The moment you disconnect yourself from that, there is no sanmana, there is no avamana.
Wow.
And there is a third aspect, anumana also.
Namaste viewers. Often when we are upset with somebody or we want to criticize someone, we usually use sentences like, he is so egoistic, his ego is not letting him to understand this, he is not letting off his ego, so on and so forth. But is really ego such a negative or a bad attribute or a quality? Or is it that we are unable to understand the real meaning of what ego is all about? If the interpretation of the ego is spiritually not accurate, then I'm sure we are somewhere misleading our own selves and also not being able to utilize ego as a bridge to understand deeper things spiritually within ourselves. So to clear this confusion and understand deeper about ego, we have an expert with us who is a perfect blend of ancient and modern wisdom. Dr. Nagendra sir, a medical doctor and a Vedic scholar. Welcome to our show, sir. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Sir, we are often told that it is dangerous to have too much of ego, we should let go of ego, and as I told earlier, it is always better to work on letting go of ego at regular time, especially when we are ascending or when we are becoming more popular. We become very conscious about, are we really egoistic or not? And most of the time when some misunderstandings occur between relationships, we tell it is because of your ego that this is not working out. So is ego restricted to this bad attribute, or is there a deeper meaning to it? What really is ego all about, sir? Please start with helping us understand the basics of the meaning of this term, and then we'll go deeper into it.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you. Namaste. So now we are too used to this word ego, and there is one more term, egoism. So what we generally talk or we say about ego is about the egoism.
Okay.
Okay. In the Vedas, the word ego is represented as aham. Aham is different from self.
Okay.
So now we need to understand this egoism, which is external exhibition of what it is trying to do. And there is something ego within. And then there is a self which is actually using the ego to work on. There are three different levels. We need to make it more clear. The general outside ego is very clear. As we all know, the ego is something which is what I am identifying myself with. So because of which there will be something just like the aham and ahankara. Ahankara, and none of them is negative.
Okay.
That we need to be very clear.
Okay.
It's not negative of egoism. Anything we can make negative out of it. So if somebody's prosperity, I may enjoy it, or I may feel bad about and jealous about it.
Correct.
So as such, the term ego or egoism is not negative. But egoism, ahankara, tattva, as a tattva, it goes more in terms of, because it is more a selfish point, that a narrow-minded one. So from that point of view, it is egoism or ahankara is slightly negative, we can put in that way. But when we understand what is exactly ego, then we feel more in a better place to understand how it is expressing out. So just like our external instruments, like indriyas, we have, for the sensory perceptions, we have jnanendriya, like ears, nose, and then the taste sensation, the touch, and then karmendriya, we have the hands, legs, and then speech, and then excretory and reproductive organs.
Right.
So these are our external instruments through which we actually either receive the message from outside, macrocosm to micro, from outside to inside, or from in to out. So this is the action. Similarly, we have antakarana, inner instruments. So this is where the journey of Vedic rishis will be more interesting.
Okay.
And we know they were with the nature. When you are with the nature, then you have more time to spend with the outer nature and my own nature. Unfortunately, today we are cut off with both the nature outside and my own swabhava also, my own nature also. This is a state where that has been slightly we are not aware of it. It's not lagging behind. We are not aware, or it's not in our priority list number 1, 2. So what is this inner instrument? Definitely there is one is mind, manas, and then we have the ahang, ahankara. That's tattva ahang. That is the ego. This is the second one is, and there is a dhi shakti or the intellect.
Okay.
So mind and intellect to great extent we understand, but even that is not very clear to many people. I think we had some discussion about the mind and also the intellect.
Yeah.
Mind is just a processor which receives all the sensation we get from outside through the sense organs, including the brain.
Right.
So those are the external input devices, just like our keyboard or the mouse, and that is a processor. The processor is the mind. So, and then this is the inner instrument. For whom? For the self.
Okay.
The inner self, what you call the inner voice, or we say that is myself when we refer to. Okay, for this session, we'll not get into that self. That's just we'll keep it as there is one inner self, who is a reference point, and then we are talking about inner instrument and outer instrument. The reference is the body.
Okay.
So body as the reference. So body, within the body we have the self. There is an outer instrument with reference to this.
Okay.
Then within the body, it is non-physical. We have the manas, mind, which processes this, including processing of the thought.
Right.
And then it expresses out or it internalizes. And then to take a decision, mind is helped by the intellect. That is a buddhi. So the action of the buddhi is to say whether to do it or not to do it. It is not to do with good or bad.
Okay. So it doesn't judge there.
No, it's not about the judgment. It's only taking a decision.
Okay.
So I want this out of desire or out of ambition or out of frustration, whatever it is. The mind only, the intellect only takes a decision. That is the discriminatory power. But not necessarily that is good or bad, high or low.
Okay.
All that comes with the later aspects of it.
Okay.
So in the evolution, we are in a place where there is mind which can process above the animal prana level, then the mind, and there is a buddhi. And then to this buddhi, it needs to identify with something. That is aham. That is the ego what we are talking. Ego, now it's an instrument just like mind and then the intellect. Now it is up to me what do I identify myself with. This aspect of identification myself with what is aham. Then we can connect this word with aham brahmasmi. The vakya, what is in the Veda, now aham is not I am God. It's not in that loose term.
Yeah.
So there is some aham inside, or the Supreme Being himself is aham inside. This is how Veda puts into.
Beautiful.
So the Rishi started from here. There must be something within me, the quality within me, which identify my body as myself, or my emotion of myself, or my intelligence, or my position, or my family, or my country, including patriotism. Anything can be. There is ahankara, aham. There is mama, me and mine. Then mamakara. Mamakara is mama, it is mine. So these two aspects of which is an instrument actually to work.
Yeah.
Using this I need to work.
Yeah.
Unless I have this body as identify myself, then I cannot work outside or inside. It is like just an instrument or a vehicle to travel. Now you cannot say that the vehicle or instrument itself, just to prepare a food you need a utensil. So these are the inner instruments what we are using. When you identify yourself with the body as this is me, aham, then you'll be more lost in actually decorating the body, outer makeup and showing off, and then not to let your inner self to be revealed to others. Then we hide things. Or
Disguise ourselves,
yes,
want
that's
to
a
please
disguise.
others.
Yes. So then you say when you are alone, it's a different person. When you're outside, different person. Not as a social being, that's nothing wrong.
Okay.
But you are deceiving yourself what you are, or showing more than what you are to the person outside. Then that is egoism. You are trying to take a benefit out of it. So this they made it very clear. As long as you are identifying with this, it's a lower self. Because you are identifying yourself with an instrument. Not the actual person who is doing an action. Instrument is always lower compared to the person who is doing acting, who is put into action. So this differentiation of egoism and ego comes in, and then this ego, then there is a devata for that also, identifying my aham. Thus devata identifying aham is nothing but Shiva. He is the Ahankara Tattva Abhimani Devata. He is also Devata for the Kama, the desire. He destroys Kama and also he brings up Kama. And his son is actually the Manmatha.
Okay.
So this, when you take from the Vedic point of view, not the Purana point of view.
Got it.
From the Vedic point of view, Shiva Tattva, not Shiva and Vishnu are different.
Yeah.
The Shiva Tattva is identifying yourself. That's why when you are happy, then you say that is Shiva, Sham and Va, that is peace and knowledge. That is Shiva, the blissful state. So through this ego, it's an aspect of the Shiva, we are trying to reach that state of Shiva, the Samadhi. Sama Adi, to connecting with the Adi Yogi.
This was actually my second question. If ego is not something that we have to eliminate after this understanding, then how do we use it as a bridge for self-realization and for self-awareness? I think that's where you're getting into.
Definitely.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So that connects with this second one. Now you use this self. The self is not the inner self.
Got it.
This aham, how do I work on it? So then this aham can easily tell you that I am not the body. It's very clear, because the moment the prana is left, the body becomes, it doesn't even have a name.
Right.
We know that that's a parthiva shariva made up of Prithvi,
Yeah.
the earth only, in spite of being 5 elements. So we call it as when do you move the body? Immediately after the person is dead.
True.
It's very practical. There is nothing wrong in that. Then I am not the prana, because the prana cannot die or cannot be born.
Correct.
I am not the mind. So this aham will tell me that where to identify myself with. So what I thought outer instrument, those are not, then it will turn inward. This aham will turn towards that aham brahma, or the Brahma. So now this knows, when it turns inward, then it is turning towards the inner self. Because all those wrong identification, it's a identification crisis.
Right.
We don't know what to identify with. It turns in. So when it turns in, then identify itself with an aspect of the Supreme Being.
Right.
So then this manas, which is actually the processor, will work better. The prana emotion will work better. Then that selfish nature and the egoistic nature becomes more broad. And this ahankara tattva is also, it's not with like a manas. It's an inner instrument. Shiva is also Abhimani Devata of Manas. Then we have Chandra, not the physical moon, like Chandrama Manaso Jata. So when you say that, the Chandra is that the blissful state is Manas. And then we have the Soma. Soma is nothing but the Chandra, which gives the delight. All these are Devatas working together.
Right.
Now once we know this, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, then Chitta. This is a fourth aspect of the inner instrument. The Chitta, for time being, it can be a memory aspect of it. Chitta, not the Chit or the Sachidananda.
Okay.
So it's a Chitta as an aspect of this, like you need that, like putting in a bank account.
Okay.
So whenever you want, you can use it. But the core of it comes from the Chitta, the Chaitanya. Here the Chitta is what? If you don't have the memory, just like you go to sleep, next day morning, then if you don't have the memory of, you don't recollect who you are, then everything is gone. There is no ego. So this is what happens when you are in the Jagruta, Swapna, Sushupti. When I'm awake, through the sense organs, my sense of ego, aham, is the body and the world I see outside. That's the prapancha. When I am going to the dream state, then your identification with that is gone, still the mind is working. So even there is an aspect, even the non-physical world, still there is, you can see difference.
Correct.
That is, you are in the dream, but nothing is in your control. In fact, even outside nothing is in my control, but I have that illusion that it's in my control. But it goes with a different world altogether. And then the deep state of sleep, where the mind goes to sleep, aham also go to sleep. Now this is a state we just connected with that inner self.
Right.
So for this inner self, this is the egoism. In fact, there are other aspects of egoism which we don't know, like anger, or the aspect of embarrassment, or even depression. Depression is one of the worst way of how I show that how egoistic or the selfish one.
Right.
That is because I get, or even I would say mana avamana. Like mana is, the word mana means ma is to know or to measure, and then know and then work. So mana is only to that. We get sammana. So that is like you will get praiseworthy, or you get avamana. You will be humiliated.
Right.
So both these are because of the egoistic nature outside. The moment you disconnect yourself from that, there is no sanmana, there is no avamana,
Wow.
and there is a third aspect, anumana also, which we always think it is just a doubt. Who is actually doubting? Because this centered here, you feel that I am getting deceived, or is it correct or not? And then aspect of fear that I may lose something, that aspect. See, this aham or the ego, when you go slightly one step back, say all these play what is going outside is because of the identification crisis, the wrong identification.
My God, my therapist within me is getting so excited because understanding this can actually help a lot of people transcend their pressure on handling criticism, depression, and so many other things. I mean, this is the real holistic treatment. That is so beautiful. Doctor, the therapist inside me now has another last doubt on this topic. Now, when we are treating somebody, we know that there are certain attributes which is a real cause for their suffering, like anger or frustration, resentment, jealousy, etc. And sometimes we feel like telling it could be also the ego, which is identifying self with the wrong thing, as you explained. But we are unable to articulate it appropriately because again their ego will not let them accept that it is my ego which is hooking onto the wrong thing, which is making me suffer. So forget about a therapist or a doctor revealing this or explaining to the therapy client, but as such, if we have to work on our own well-being, how can we now calibrate this whole thing about aham to bring us into that alignment that you were talking about? Because ultimately, if it can bring some solace within ourselves, especially in handling so many complications and mixed emotions, it will be of great help, and also for us to get deeper into the concept of understanding this from a spiritual context. So as a doctor as well, how do you think this can help a person wanting to reap benefits from the health context also?
Yes, definitely. At least in the two state of a disease and then for the growth.
Yeah.
There is a normal state, the disease state, and then the growth state.
Yes.
So when I identify myself with the body and then as a disease, identifying myself as a disease.
Exactly.
I say that I'm a diabetic patient.
Yes.
Now you identify that ego that you became diabetic.
Yeah, so true.
I say I am hypertensive.
Yeah.
I have acidity. So you accepted it.
Yes.
So these are the wrong identification. Now nobody can take out of you. You
Yes.
would have this a big challenge when you are doing that.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
more easy for me to just give a tablet to them and say, it is
more there.
yes, it is no more there till as long as the tablet is working, the medicine is working.
Yeah.
So okay. Now when you identify, when you know that this is the ego,
Yeah.
then instead of turning the ego outside, all that you have to do is turn the light inside. This is the first step of sadhana.
Yeah.
The moment you do that, then the light which was actually behind light is always darkness.
Yeah. So true.
So now you turn this and then that will reflect, that will show you the path to the self. It will show the true identity for yourself.
Yeah.
That is aham. Then the true identification of and the first step as understanding myself comes.
Yeah.
When I can understand my own inner instrument and outer instrument, then I can use this either for my disease cure or to the growing toward the higher self. This is the easiest path, and this happens naturally.
That's beautiful. We would like to know more about this, but for that our viewers will have to wait. So here you go, viewers. Ego is not something that you need to fear or want to desperately eliminate. Rather, spend some time to understand this, and as doctor explained, utilize it to use that as a bridge for you to dive in deeper into whether you want to achieve well-being through this or you want to spiritually grow through this information. Thank you so much for watching this video. Do not forget to subscribe and to also click on the like button. And please let us know your opinion about what ego is for you and what is your understanding now about ego after watching this great information that has been graced by Doctor. Thank you so much, Doctor. We'll meet you again in the next episode. Thank you, viewers. We'll see you again. Namaste.